Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our draft prospect show, and today we're going to talk about Ohio State wide receiver standout Emeka Egbuka. This is a young man, 6'1", about 200 pounds, with blazing speed. He's been timed at 4.3 in the low 4.3s in the 40, and we're going to talk a little bit about him today. Logan Landers is our producer and engineer. Vincent Turner is our host, and he's the founder of the show. And Trey Sims also joins us here today with an insight that he has on Emeka that we're going to talk about a little more specifically in a moment. But I'm going to begin with you, Vincent. Here's a guy with outstanding speed, plays for a national championship. He's one of those guys. He's not even the number one receiver that everybody's talking about in terms of Ohio State's lineup. But, man, can he get down the field. He's a blazer. He runs great routes. He reminds me a little bit of the theory and the thought process from an NFL perspective, Vincent, when you have a guy like Cliff Branch, if you remember from the days, the guys that 2 or 3 times a ball game, you're going to go deep. You've got others like Willie Gault was that version for the Chicago Bears back in the days when they were the Super Bowl champions and a great team throughout the playoff year that had the ability to win the Super Bowl. More recently, you have Tyreek Hill or Randy Moss would be another guy. Now, I'm not calling his respect a little bit more out of that, but if you don't mind me saying so, his speed, and his speed are 3 things that are very difficult for defenses to go against. Give us your perspective here on the young man from Ohio State University.
The Ohio State, very underrated football player coming into the 2025 NFL draft. You look at what he's done. He played 4 years at Ohio State, and some of my nephew told me yesterday, that's right, Trey Sims, my nephew, that consistent. He's been consistent in his career at Ohio State. And think about all the great receivers that's played at that school. Michael Jenkins, Joey Galloway, Terry Glenn, David Boston, Marvin Harrison Jr., Gary Wilson. That's
Chris Carter. Don't forget Chris Carter.
The best of the best who started the tradition. And think about how this young man has played there and nobody talks about him. They talk about all the other great wide receivers that came out of Ohio State. But I tell you what, Hop, I hear your energy. I love the young man because when it's all said and done, he might be the best of the best. Can you think about Anthony Carter back in the day when he was at Michigan? A gentleman I saw play when I was at the University of Arkansas, who was a 2-time first-team All-American, and Emmanuel Tolbert, who was exciting. Tim Brown, when he was at Notre Dame, not when he was at the Raiders, when he was at Notre Dame putting on the show and winning the Heisman. It then reminds me of this guy that a lot of people don't remember, but he played in the run and shoot down there in Houston, Texas, with the University of Houston when Mr. Andre Ware's name was Jason Phillips. And we had a nickname for him. Long-winded, touchdown. This gentleman right here is a football player, and I like his size, 6'1", 200, out of Tacoma, Washington. The only other athlete that was famous that came out of Tacoma, Washington, Sugar Ray Seals, 1972 Olympic champion in boxing. Back to you, Hop.
Well, Jay Phil was a great teammate, and man, that was one of the hardest workers you're ever going to see. So thank you for bringing up Jason Phillips' names. You're going back in the memory banks for me. All right, Trey, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the particulars, some of the numbers, the things that we want to look at. This 6'1", 200-pounder. Here's one number that stands out, 4.30. He wasn't at the combine, was he? But he does have pro day coming up.
Yes, for sure. As like my uncle brought out earlier, consistent, very reliable. Speed helps. You can be fast. Excuse me. You can be open. But I wanted to talk about some of his college career. Like I said, he's played 4 years. He didn't play too much his freshman year, as most freshmen don't tend to do at big schools like Ohio State. But he did help in the return game. He had 500 yards of total offense return yards his freshman year. But he really exploded his sophomore year where he had 1,000 yards, 1,100. He had 10 touchdowns his sophomore year. He had 74 receptions. Kind of had a slightly reduced season in his junior year. He only played 10 games, so I'm sure he got injured. but then he came back for the big one, which is last year where they won the national championship, where he had 81 receptions, over 1,000 yards again, another 10 touchdowns. So throughout his career, he's been consistent and been productive. So I feel like if you, as a team again, as the Pittsburgh Steelers that may need another wide receiver, I wouldn't mind getting Emeka Egbuka as a very productive wide receiver at his time in Ohio State.
Yeah, Tatoria McMillan out of Arizona State is listed as the number one guy on the board right now. Matthew Golden. Matthew's issue for me is he's only 5'10". He's got blazing speed as well, but he's a smaller body at 6'1". Emeka does have a bigger frame. He's considered to be a little more frail, but you can see by the pictures right there, dude's strong. He can probably work on a little bit, if he adds maybe 5 pounds, but if he keeps the same weight and adds strength, that would be a real big plus for him, especially going against press coverage against some of the bigger DBs that are in the league right now. Luther Burden, now we've talked to him out of Missouri. He's listed as number 3. And then you've got Egbuka there. He's right there with him, but that 4.3 blazing speed. The thing that I like, Trey, is that his feet, the footwork that he has, not only the ability to get to full speed right away, in your second or third step as you're running at a pace that very few people on earth can keep up with, but your ability in zone to be able to get quickly to the spot and stop on a dime, or at least to be able to slide and get around and find that open spot in between a linebacker, a safety, and maybe a cornerback in decision. Those are some other pluses that I think really will help him in the draft.
Yeah. Excuse me, for sure. Like you said, a very good route runner, technician, if you may say so. If you want to talk about something that I think he could work on is when he gets the ball in his hands. I feel like he could be a better yak player, but that, like you said, getting a little stronger. But other than that, he's pretty much a sure prospect, but in athleticism, because he's compared to Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions. That's his NFL comparison. Again, the model of consistency. Didn't drop a pass last year, and so for the Lions. So you can get that. Excuse me, out of Emeka. I'm losing my voice.
Okay.
If you get that out of Emeka, consistency. And then I think he's projected to be around the late first round or even the second round draft pick. So you get him second round, I think that's a steal.
Yeah, there's some questions also about his durability. He's coming off an ankle injury, and is that going to prevent him from being able to go full speed? What type of recovery we're looking at from that, and does that lead to other leg injuries? We certainly hope that doesn't, but if those get answered, I think that'll help boost him rather than be a negative thing. The strength issue against press coverage, I think that'll be something that any receiver needs to work on, especially going from a collegiate to a pro level, being able to address that and get back where you need to be in terms of your route running, the precision of getting down the field and be at a spot in 10, 12, 14 yards. I'm not sure about his tenacity. I would measure against the guy I went against near the latter end of my career, Steve Smith, or you mentioned Amon St. Brown, a guy that he's nasty. He catches the ball and you're going to have to work to tackle him. Some guys have to develop that. Other guys already have it in them. I'm not sure where Emeka is. Do you have any thoughts on that, Trey?
Yeah, like guys, like you said, like I was saying, like once you get the ball in your hands, can you score? This is a thing other people, prospect scouts look out. Right. And like I said, I feel like it's something he might need to work on because he didn't have a ton of yardage. But like when if the ball is thrown to him, he's not going to drop it. So, but I also like that he did this, as we all said, with all the talent around him. Like as you said, he wasn't the leading receiver in none of the years he was there. Jeremiah Smith was last year. The year before that was Marvin Harrison Jr. The year before that was JSN, which Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah.
The year before that was Garrett Wilson. So he's never been the lead target, and he still puts up good numbers, and he's still productive. So and
everyone needs a number 2 guy, right?
for sure.
You mentioned all those guys that were in front of him and maybe had more, but he had 81 this last year. Will Smith found him. Will Howard, excuse me, and was able to get the ball to him on third and whatever. If they're going to double cover anybody else, Egbuka's the guy that you can go to and go, all right, well, we'll get the first down with anyone else that we got on our roster. But his numbers certainly speak for themselves in terms of his openness, his availability. And one of the things also in terms of the pluses, we talked about a few of the negatives. The plus for me is he's a disciplined route runner, but he's an exceptional ball tracker. And when you throw a deep ball, half the problem that a quarterback has when he lets it go, and he knows where it's going to land, but he doesn't know if you're going to get there. For Egbuka to be the guy that's going to go get it and have the speed to be able to do that, what a difference maker. You know that if you just put a little bit of arc on the ball and lead him enough, you're not going to outthrow him, at least not on many occasions. Those are other points of emphasis that I have. Anything else, Trey?
That we mentioned his size, great size, mentioned speed. He got his hands a little bit, they measure at 9 5/8, so it's not the biggest hands, but doesn't seem to be a problem as far as him catching the ball. Fairly long arms for a wide receiver. So I'd feel like just overall, like I say, it's a reason why he's a first round prospect, early second round prospect.
You know, Vincent, I would think Coco might have a comment or two on whether or not Emeka Egbuka would be a draft pick. The Coco's kind of shaking around there a little bit. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think Coco likes the young man out of Virginia. How about you?
Yes, sir. Coco likes anybody. She likes anybody. She likes the top 5 receivers in the draft. It doesn't matter.
Does she like 4.3 speed, or is that a little bit too fast for Coco?
No, as long as you had that the treats in front of her, she probably like anything. You had a doggy treat, she gonna like anything.
Well, a couple of points that I wanted to bring out. He catches with his hands. You would think that's duh. Everybody does it. No, they don't. There are a lot of guys that catch the ball with their forearms. They catch the ball with their elbows. They let the ball hit their shoulder pads first. That's something that will carry very well. And the stronger your hands are, obviously, when a DB is trying to knock the ball away, when you're reaching up above for a ball, that's a critical aspect. Some receivers can't do that all that well. I think he has that in his favor. He knows how to get open, and he runs disciplined routes where he gets to the spot. The quarterback knows where he's going to be when he turns and faces that number 2 towards the quarterback, and the ball can be on its way. He's a tough route runner, meaning he recorrects and gets back to the route pattern that he needs to get to. Those are some things that I liked about him, and he's a competitor. He can start and stop on a dime and slide into open spots. Those are critical aspects of it too. But there's one thing that I thought was very interesting. One scout said that he can vary his tempo and hit head and shoulder fakes. That to me speaks volumes, because if you have that great speed, but you only use it to run 9 routes, go routes, okay. But if you can vary it and make it look like you're going to make a break, and then you turn the jets on and go, and you create separation with something like that, obviously that to me is a big difference maker. And the biggest and last point that I have before we finish up, guys, is Trey, you mentioned earlier that he is a good kick returner and he is a good punt returner. On sweeps and jet sweeps and runs, he's versatile. He can catch the ball when he's running down the field, but he creates other different ways where he can help your team. The more you can do, I still don't understand the NFL kickoff coverage right now, the way that that's working, but he might be one of those guys that could really earn a spot on a roster and do additional things like helping on kickoff returns. And boy, if he turns a couple of punts into touchdowns in the preseason, he is going to be exciting to watch. So Trey, final thoughts from you about Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State University.
I think he's a winner. Usually most people going to go to a place like Ohio State are winners. So good. Never had heard anything about it, him having any problems like as far as his character. So I think he's a high character guy.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, you can't go I don't think you can go wrong with a draft in Emeka or Emeka.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned something earlier about, there's been other guys that have had bigger stats or more publicity on that roster, but he's certainly proven his point, in my opinion, very well at that. I'm here too. You got to cover me as well. I'm not on this roster as a charity case. I'm a legitimate player, and I'm ranked number 4 right now. Vincent, your final thoughts. You and Coco, how do you feel about Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State?
Me and Coco. We're well-prepared game, 49 games, 205 receptions, 2,800 yards, 14 yards a catch, 24 touchdowns his 4-year career. Very special football player. O-H-I-O. Ohio. Ohio. Back to you, Hawk.
There we go, folks. So Coco and Ohio, they both like Emmanuel or Mika, and we do as well. We think he's going to have a great future in the National Football League. Might be a day 1 pick. It depends. There's certain different positions that I think will go in spurts this year. There's a lot of defensive talent, so I think your offensive guys might be able to take advantage of that and move up. There's a shortage of linemen, and great wide receivers are always something that a team needs, and maybe a first rounder. If not, he'll be an early second round pick, at least in my estimation. So we wish him well. We want to thank you for being a part of today's show. For Logan Landers, our producer and engineer. For Trey Smith, our young new addition to the show. We appreciate him being on. And obviously Vincent Turner as well. I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you for tuning in to our Draft Prospect Show here on 100 Yards of Football. Have a fantastic day, everybody.